All right, everyone, welcome in. It is Wednesday. It is time for full court press. And Rob, I've gotten very positive feedback overall about the fact that we start the show by recapping the day before. Apparently, a lot of shows don't do that, and so I've gotten good feedback, but it has also opened me up to I forget who said it, but I thought it was funny. Someone commented, they were like, Trig, we are on your ass in the morning for NJIT. And I said, all right, you know what? If we're going to do the recap, it's, we got to talk about the good and the bad. Certainly the bad for me last night was NJIT. They got blown out and it cost us our parlay for the show. The good for me, I went 3-2. I had 5 4%ers. And I even sort of noted that, like, I'm kind of in play them all road mode right now, Rob. I feel like my edge is sort of as big as it's going to be for the rest of the year, this week, next week. You even talked about that a little bit yesterday. So I made 5 bets. They were all 4% plays, and I went 3-2. My big takeaway from yesterday, and I want you to chime in on this, so I'll sort of finish my thought here, and then we'll go to you. My big takeaway was my 2 losses, NJIT and Mississippi State, were spots where I was almost trying to play the locker room psychologist game, if you will, trying to figure out how much motivation there was on a certain side. And ultimately, I went against 2 teams that were the better team, that I thought would be maybe less motivated in a certain spot, against the number, of course, right? Against the number. We're betting against the number. That's the equalizer. And it did not work out. Whereas in the conference tournaments and the games that were more just like your traditional game where both teams had something at stake, I hit all of those: Towson, UMass, and Green Bay. So 3-2 for me. How was your night last night? And what do you have to make of that?
Well, a couple of things. A, we didn't win the parlay, but we had the opportunity to choose Mississippi State, and we avoided that by taking Alabama over that game over. So that worked out. These spot plays, I think we've talked about it a lot, Adam. These situational spot plays, I feel like they used to work more often years ago than they do nowadays. Not sure why. Thomas Houck, I mean, and your Mississippi State play, let's just say that you actually did project that somebody would sit, maybe multiples, but a starter would sit at least. And Thomas Houck sat, and Florida got off to a miserable start. And Todd Golden in the post game even reflected on that. He said basically that he calls him Tommy, without Tommy in there, the defensive rotations were something we weren't really used to. We had to settle in, et cetera, et cetera. And credit to them, in other than being your final home game, not a game that necessarily needed to be a blowout, but man, the second half, they just came out and showed that they're a step ahead of the rest of the SEC. So from that perspective of meaningless games, situational plays, to meaningful games, I do get where you're coming from there. I just feel like these situationals, I've tried to kind of pick and choose on those. My night last night was 4-1. So combined, for those who are mad about NJIT, you guys are the ones that were mad about Eastern Washington the night before. Somebody in our comment section was like,
Hey.
you wrecked my 5-team parlay with EWU. I'm like, come on, man. We're a combined 7-3 last night. If you purchased the CBB Double the Firepower full court press package, went 7-3, all different plays. Mine were all totals, Adam. I'm trying to look mine up so I can just tell you really quick what we had last night as far as winners were concerned. We'll take a couple seconds to recap here because that's what the people want. I had, in order, 4 wins. Of course, Oklahoma, which we released here on the show. Oklahoma did get the revenge on Missouri. Yep. Was pretty easy, too. And to the eye test real quick, this is a little off base or off topic. Oklahoma looks a lot better right now that they're winning games. This team was playing hard and couldn't win. Now they're winning games. William and Mary went back to the well with them. Team total over. Nice and easy. They got to 94. Grand Canyon Air Force. Air Force games over have been a gold mine this year. Went about 6 or 7 points over, I'll say. Vandy team total over against Mississippi. Mississippi had been giving it up like water for the most part. They get there. That's 4-0. And the loser, Illinois. And that was the $5 Tuesday play, Adam. Illinois team
Yeah,
total over 82.5, get to 80. So you go 4-0, but the $5 play that you feature doesn't get there. But they were all played for the same amount, so you get a 4-1 out of it.
Yeah, I did pick the correct, I guess, $5 play yesterday. That was Green Bay for me. Listen, I had good numbers with NJIT and Mississippi State. NJIT went off 4. But yeah, I'll stay on the topic of that Florida game for a second because we're going to talk. So I'll tell you right now, our feature game today is going to be Texas, Arkansas. But for me, a lot of my opinions are in the conference tournament. So, just know that that's where I'm sort of spending most of my time right now. That being said, let's talk Texas, Arkansas, because Rob, I want to go back to Florida. I was at Arkansas's most recent game on Saturday night in Gainesville. And so sitting there watching that game, and I couldn't help but think, man, like Arkansas, especially as we got toward the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half, team just looked very, very tired, Rob. Like a team that, like, you almost thought it. I was just watching John Calipari for a while. Like when when you're in the building, you have the luxury of looking at and watching whatever you want to watch. And I really felt like he was doing his absolute best to get kicked out of that game. Like he desperately wanted to get sent back to the locker room. I'm shocked he let Acuff stay in as long as he did. So I guess the point I'm trying to make here is it's almost like a boxing match. And Todd Golden commented on this after the game. I stayed for the ceremony. Florida cut the nets down, won the SEC tournament or the SEC regular season. And they cut the nets down. They had this big celebration. And I stayed there to listen to Golden address the crowd. And he even Golden's also becoming one of my favorite coaches where he like compliments you, even though he just beat you by 40. Like it's almost like backhanded. I wonder if it's something that's probably why Calipari doesn't like him very much. But he basically said like Arkansas had more energy out of the gate. Right. And they did. Arkansas actually led that game 16-11, maybe first 8 to 10 minutes. I think Golden called a timeout after Arkansas took a 5-point lead. And then the rest of the game, it was all Florida to the point where almost like you saw last night out of Florida, go down 10, regroup, and just destroy a team. But I want to go back to Arkansas specifically because to me, they looked tired. They looked fatigued. They had just played a couple of games prior in the 90s, Rob. And then they had to deal with Florida, it seems like on their worst day, they're still going to beat you by 20 at this point. So my question to you, because I want to love Arkansas here. I've been very, very high on this team. I thought 6.5 or 7 was a little light, but I can't get over the fact that this team might be limping a little bit into the finish line of the regular season. And then Darius Acuff might be limping literally because he's been dealing with a foot injury. So what do you make of all of that? And do you have an angle in Texas, Arkansas for us?
Yeah, the one thing for Arkansas that was problematic is the fact that they just don't have the front line to match with Florida. So you can get worn down pretty quickly trying to use 100% effort and just continue to get beaten to boards or beaten up physically underneath, like you're not used to. With Texas, vocatitis is one thing, but it's not Florida's front line. So perhaps this becomes more of a I'll call it finesse, but more fluid game for Arkansas in this particular matchup. There's a couple of things here, Adam, really quick. I guess you were saying your number came out at 6.5, or that was what you saw for a line?
Oh no, my number is like 10.5 personally. I saw a couple 6.5s and then mostly 7. I was, when it got to 6.5 at a couple of books, I was thinking about jumping in with Arkansas, but no, personally, I'm at like 10.5 here on Arkansas.
Okay, so a couple things that don't favor Texas here for sure. And again, I won't go into the meaningful stuff where seedings are concerned. Rest assured, these last 2 games for almost every SEC team is meaningful as to where they're going to be positioned inside the conference tournament. Last night, things shifted once again. Once Oklahoma beat Missouri, Missouri fell out of that top 4 and now are 5. So things are going to shift in the SEC. Every game is important at this point in time. Arkansas does not turn the ball over, and Texas doesn't turn you over. Meaning behind that is, Arkansas is going to get just about every possession. When they have the ball, it's going to be a shot for Arkansas, which is good news if you like the Razorback side. Arkansas doesn't really get to the free throw line. But Texas, what did Sean Miller tell us a month and a half ago? We foul like crazy, and they still do. They're 14th in the league in putting opponents on the free throw line. That's pretty bad. So maybe Arkansas gets to the line a little more than normal in this particular case. Texas shoots it pretty well from the interior inside the arc. Arkansas doesn't defend that. There's a lot of things here that add up to over for me. And again, of course, I'm talking about it from a totals perspective. Now, this number came out fairly high, 165.5, bit down to 164. Is a 163.5 out there. And that's probably more like where it should have opened. Probably should have opened in the 163 range rather than the mid 160s. But I know odds makers want to, force over bettors immediately to pay a tax on just about everything when you have offensive teams. I still, it's not Arkansas, Alabama. And I think we found out in a couple of games this past week where even though there's a lot of intensity or there's a lot of effort and energy placed into winning this game, it doesn't always correlate into defense. You still have to play defense. And I don't know. This game to me just sets up as more of a wide open floor, guys making shots. I think Arkansas rim penetration will get them to the foul line against this particular team. I think Texas can do a little bit of the same, could get handsy in this case. I think in the end, you could see some absolute extension of this game, even though it's priced at 7.5. I still think it might be a shade closer than that. 2 minutes left. Texas is going to fight here. For me, it's probably going to be a look toward the over, Adam. If I had to play the game, I think Arkansas is the better team, to tell you the truth. And I think Arkansas is way more capable in Bud Walton, which we've highlighted before, of the devastating run, so to speak, the devastating 14-2 punch that just puts us ahead and you can't catch us at that point in time. So I think I would still lean Arkansas at this price tag, but over, if it gets down to 163, it's probably worth the play for me.
Yeah, listen, no one ever got tired when the ball was in their hands, Rob. If you're tired, that shows up digging in on the defensive end, not when you're with the ball trying to go to the rim. My thing, I guess the only thing keeping me off Arkansas, because I do have a pretty strong lean toward the Razorbacks here. My number suggests I should have played it already. I was certain that Calipari would have just taken the starters out with 15 minutes to go. It was so clear that they were not getting back into that game. I actually couldn't believe how long he kept Acuff out there and knowing that he's been dealing with a foot injury. He's even said he's even come out and said I'm playing hurt, but I want to be out on the floor. If I knew that Arkansas was showing up full strength, wasn't banged up at all, I would expect them to run Texas out of the gym. The home road splits have been going on for years with Arkansas, so we know that in Fayetteville they're worthy of that bump against on the number. And then I'll go back to the point you made about Vukatitis not being that's not going to be something that when he's in there, it certainly matters. But if he were to get into foul trouble, what's behind him is something that's where Arkansas's run probably comes. If they can get Vukatitis in some of that front court in the foul trouble, that's where you can see him hit the kill shot, if you will. I forget who was it. Is it Evan Maya that tracks the kill shots? I forget. Someone does. But the point is that 10-0 knockout punch run. Yeah, at home, Arkansas might have one or two of those. And, just to, you want to just, the final sort of thing for this handicap for me, I know Calipari was not happy. And, when it's a guy like Calipari or a guy like Rick Pitino, who we saw the other night, and your team just gets dusted, typically you can't wait to get back out on the floor. And you have to wonder, you saw St. John's, similar spread range, 6. I think they actually went off 7.5 against Villanova after they just got slapped around by UConn, come out and win by 30 or 40. I'm not saying that's going to be that drastic here, but this certainly feels like a spot where, Calipari's, he's even talked about his players not letting him coach them as much as he would like. That's usually translation. They don't have the thick skin that I think they need, so I can really lay into them, right? Like that's, those are these old school guys like Calipari and Pitino coach that way. I think Arkansas responds. This is probably it's not going to be my parlay leg. It hasn't been bet for clients yet, but I'm certainly thinking about it. And this is one that may be an ad for me as the day goes on. I really like the Razorbacks here.
Very typical of John Calipari and his mindset, Adam, is, you know what? If you're going to go out there and be lazy and you're getting beat by 20, I'm going to leave you out there. You're not coming to the bench. You're going to stay out there and you're going to get beat by 30. You know what I mean? He does that sometimes where we would think, why aren't you pulling your starters? He's like proving a point. If you're not going to play, just stay out there and you can go and be embarrassed. So, and I think the last point to Vocatitis, I think what I was trying to say is that, if Vocatitis is Condon for Florida, there's no Chinaloo and Houck with him. You know what I mean? Vocatitis is on his own down there. And for Arkansas, that could be a little easier as far as getting to the rim and getting rebounds are concerned here tonight. So for betting purposes, obviously for fan watching the game as well, you hope A-Cup is going to be okay. This would be a poor time of year to see this kid get hurt and not really be 100% because he's been sensational all season long. So we'll leave it at that. Yeah, you like a little lean toward Arkansas potentially if they're at full strength, and I think there's a little lean toward the over here.
All right, let's move on. Best day ever says just a couple bucks, $2 donation. We very much appreciate you. And all right, Garth, you're in the parlay today, and the reason you're in the parlay today is because you have found one of my client plays, and I am going to give another one out on the show because I'm probably going to end up with 4 or 5. So I've got one to spare. Maybe I'll give 2 because this is going to be Garth's leg of the parlay. I am nominating him for the third leg of the 3-teamer. And Garth says Dayton under 146.5 hit with 21 points to spare. Rob and I talked about it when we got off the show. We're like Garth's moving numbers on the show now because that got absolutely slammed like right after he said that, to the point where it was like a huge move toward the under since we got off the show. Yeah, that guess that was good at any number. Garth says he's 11-3 in his last 14. He's going to the NEC tonight and taking Central Connecticut State -4.5. And Garth, so am I. I already bet this earlier. This is a 4% play for me, but this is going to be your leg of the parlay, though I'm going to give you my reasoning on Central Connecticut State. So Rob Vino, I was in hard-hitting New Britain last year for the final of the NEC, and it was the heartbreaker of all heartbreakers for Central Connecticut State. On their home floor, they lost as a double-digit favorite to St. Francis, like at the last second, right at the end of the game, on a last-second shot. A lot of stunned looks in the crowd in New Britain. That was they were an 11.5-point favorite. It was a game they expected to win and, of course, get to the NCAA tournament. So, obviously, it's not the exact same team, but there's a lot of guys that were still on that team that are still there. Of course, Pat Sellers, the head coach, still there. The entire crowd, I'm sure that's come up. Let's put it this way. They have a home game, quarterfinal game. I am sure it's been brought up. Hey, last time you guys hosted an NEC tournament game on this floor, remember what happened. You don't want that feeling again, right? Like that is, I'm certain it was part of Sellers' sort of sell, if you will, to his team this week. I look at the NEC outside of Long Island. I still think Central Connecticut State is the second best team. So to me, they should expect to be in the final this year. Obviously, the tables will be turned. They'll probably be on the road. But as far as this game is concerned, listen, Wagner, they had a great run to end NEC play. But there was a point in time where they were 1-7 in this league this year. For me, they've always been one of the bottom teams in this league. I think it was almost like, good fortune, if you will, Rob, catching some teams at the right time. And then, of course, Wagner is just going to chuck threes. That is what they're going to do. And to their credit, they've hit enough of them. They've kind of been red hot on this run, but they've also hit enough of them to, like, in my opinion, like, put up this charade that they're like a good team in this league. But to me, if you play, like if Wagner was to play the top teams enough, they'd probably get blasted almost every game. And especially on the road. It's really tough. We talked about this yesterday or the day before. I forget what game it was, but teams that are just going to chuck from 3-point range tend to not do it as well on the road. It's like much harder to go on the road if you're like super jump shot reliant and go into someone else's gym and just shoot the lights out. So for me, I thought this number was light. I was at 7.5 here. So Garth, I'm with you. Central Connecticut State -4.5 is a client play for me, and that's going to be Garth's leg of the parlay. Rob, anything for you in CCSU Wagner?
No, but I want to keep Garth in here for a second. I know you're in the chat, so I'm just going to bring a game up, a conference tournament game.
Yeah, you could go to a different game.
Yeah, we're going to give the people what they want, give them a little something extra here. But Garth, first of all, I did drop in the comments section and compliment you. Great pick with Dayton under yesterday. But let me just point out that in the Summit League tonight, Oral Roberts and UMKC, or Kansas City as they like to be called now, the Kangaroos. We were on Saturday, Adam, on Last Call with Kelly when Garth dropped in with how about UMKC under their team total against who? Oral Roberts. They just played this game like 3 days ago or 4 days ago. And that final score went 94-70 ORU. UMKC, we've talked about it a lot. Marvin Menzies and the disaster that's been their season, their inability to score points. ODU, I think that's the second time this year, I believe, that they beat UMKC. Yeah, 69-60 the first time, 94-70 the second time. I don't know that there's a real reason to like UMKC in this game, so my lean would be Oral Roberts. But Garth, chime in here really quick if you can. Just comment inside the section. That team total tonight is 69.5 for UMKC. They just got to 70. I would be inclined. Remember now that in the Summit, they play all the games at Sanford Premier Center, which is a gym in South Dakota. So it somewhat favors the South Dakota Coyotes and South Dakota State, but not a ton. I used to give this like maybe half credit for a home floor, not a ton of credit. But how about UMKC staying under tonight? He liked it Saturday. I like it tonight. I don't see UMKC getting back to 70 again. Just really quick here in that game Saturday, because it was such a blowout, 94-70. The game kind of got a little score happy in the end. But for UMKC in that game, they got to 70 and still didn't even average 1 point per possession. I don't know that they can do it here, Adam. It was an initial look of mine. Choice was play Oral Roberts over their team total or play UMKC under their total. I'd revert back to UMKC's just had such offensive difficulties all season long that I would play that under 69.5.
Yeah, I commented when we were on the show the other day. Actually, I think this was sort of the kind of conversation we had twice now since we've talked about UMKC in each of their last two games, where it's just like, I mean, this team's really just kind of playing out the string. Right. They know that they're, that it's going to be they're going to clean house after this season, right? Like new coach, probably knew everything. I don't even know how many of these players still, like how many are even on the team next year. It almost seems like Turgeon. Yeah. I mean, he may keep, if there's anyone that shows redeeming quality, he may keep him, but it's probably a bench guy here or there. Garth has chimed in. He says to quote Joe Ranieri, if it's not broke, don't fix it. That's kind of how I feel like the approach to UMKC should be. Listen, their season is likely over after today. Even Oral Roberts having a down year is still an 8.5 point favorite in this game. So to think that UMKC, which they really haven't shown up at all recently, just like goes up to South Dakota and shows up here, I don't see it. This is almost like these are the types of teams, Rob, that other conferences are no longer bringing to their conference tournament, right? Like a lot of the other leagues have said, you know what, we don't need to do this, right? We don't need to bring UMKC up to take their beating just to send them back home. The Summit, it looks like, is bringing everyone. And so you're going to have this first round game whereas Oral Roberts, like, they've had a bad season, but they've at least looked dangerous at times. So again, do I want to like necessarily lay 8.5 with Oral Roberts? Not really, but it's the way I would go in this game because I think UMKC is like pretty far off from at least where Oral Roberts is at this point. And so then you're talking like, I don't think there's any chance UMKC wins here. So when I get to that point, obviously they have a chance to cover. You're talking about 4 possessions. But to me, it looks like if they're going to be down by 6 or by 8, they might just like pack it in. And it's just like, all right, especially if they get down big early, like this team has shown no fight in my opinion. So yeah. And then maybe your under is good as well. And I think that's what Garth's kind of saying. He'd probably, if he had to, he'd probably go back to the well with that. So it's a good, interesting one there up in Sioux Falls tonight, the first round of the Summit League tournament.
First off, I'm just going to comment a couple of things. First off, Garth, I'm not letting Ranieri take credit for anything. He gets credit for enough around here.
Yeah,
that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Goes back to when we used to do the NBA show daily together. Joe would host, myself, Hakeem Prophet. It was a common phrase on that show. Robert Harris was a producer back then. So no, I'm not letting that slide as a Ranieri thing. No way. He gets enough credit for other stuff. Second thing is, this is different, Adam, and I think it's why we talk about situational all the time, and there's no general umbrella to throw things under. We're going to talk a lot the next couple of weeks about teams that didn't win their conference championship that get revitalized by a conference tournament and become dangerous, whether they're a second-place team or an eighth-place team. You see teams make runs in these tournaments. UMKC just doesn't fit that bill in my mind. There's nothing that revitalizes them after getting beat by 24 3 days ago by the team that they're coming into face tonight off of a season where, I don't know, 1-16 or whatever they were in Summit League play and can't score. And the whole disaster, they just probably wanted to come to an end. So I think that's a little bit different than what we'll talk about in a lot of these instances. And like I said, when you get beat by 24 3 days ago and you're just a lousy team, Oral Roberts knows they can beat them by 24 again. And I don't believe Oral Roberts has to play the next day either. I don't think the Summit League tournament is set up that way where you play back-to-back, the way we're watching these Sun Belt teams go back. The more you win, the more you play in the Sun Belt. You may be playing from now till Sunday or till Saturday if you're one of the teams that won last night. So I like the UMKC under tonight.
Rob, one final point, though, is Oral Roberts may actually fit that bill, right? They are the type of team where it's like they come out and win here. Like they profile as a team that could be a little bit dangerous. Whereas like, yeah, I think UMKC probably knows they have no chance. And it's likely an effort that it probably looks like that. So again, I haven't had huge.
Adam, real quick, I think Max Asmus, is that right? Paul Mills had him at ORU in the last couple of years, and they were getting to the tournament. But it's a kind of a new system for this team.
Yeah,
that towards the end of the year, maybe it's just UMKC, maybe they are getting a little better. But you're absolutely right. It's the type of thing that could rejuvenate Oral Roberts. Hey, we got a shot here.
All right, let's move on. First, I will do our quick. Well, first, I'll think we have a couple of donations with no pick attached, so I'll take the time to say we very much appreciate that. Appreciate you guys tuning into the show. If you like what you hear here, we have a great special up. It's either 3 days of all access, myself and Rob, all of our picks, or you can get everything through the NCAA tournament, which means all the small tournaments, all the conference tournaments. It's from a value standpoint per play. There's almost no better time of year to do it. So again, that's up there if you are so inclined. All right, let's go back to the chat and let's go back to the main board, if you will, here, Rob. This is another one that I thought about making the feature today. I was torn between Arkansas, Texas, and this game, and I still think Arkansas, Texas is a bigger game. But Miami has been sort of the bane of my existence this year. Thankfully, I haven't bet against them very often, even though like every time they come up, I'm inclined to do so. And I did have a 5% winner against them maybe a week or week and a half ago. I took Virginia Tech plus the points, a game that somehow Miami found a way and then had the benefit of not having a foul called on them at the end and a ball that sort of rimmed out. Believe they won that game by 1. They are now, Rob, 6-1 in their last 7 games. Their only loss in that span is a 3-point loss to Virginia, where they covered. But I still can't get behind this Miami team. It's still, I look at the schedule they've played. It's still like the easiest schedule of anyone in the ACC. Of course, the one loss in that 7-game stretch was the toughest game, right, that they had. That was the one real big-time test. You could point and say, well, Trig, they beat UNC. But if you remember, they beat UNC right after UNC had their crazy upset last-second shot win against Duke. So, again, this is just Miami catching everyone in the ideal spot. I don't think that's the case here, Rob. They're catching now. It's SMU that's in the desperate spot here. Back-to-back losses. They lose both games to the West Coast ACC teams. Get swept by Cal and Stanford. So for once, is Miami in the bad spot here? Is this good? Is this the good spot for SMU? We're in Texas. Talk to me about SMU Miami because I can't seem to get the Hurricanes right.
First off, kudos to Quinn Lanigan 5264 for bringing this game up, because when I brought up UMKC, I was almost going to bring this up just to get your view on Miami. Listen, Miami's not in a bad spot here tonight because there's no way, at least my opinion, there's no way I'm getting behind SMU without BJ Edwards. Did not play set, got hurt 2 games ago. And then, I wanted to play SMU the other day against Stanford. I said, I can't chance it without him in the lineup. And what do? They go out and get beat by 20. This team is offense only. And when you take that important of a cog out of there, and all reports I read this morning when I was checking this game out, the ankle leaves him still doubtful and probably not going to play. They're probably going to save him for the conference tournament. And so Boopy Miller on his own in Moody, I know it's a nice home floor, but again, Miami catches a favorable spot, in my opinion, where this team doesn't have their second best scoring option on the floor. Puts in a lot of minutes, does a lot of things for this team. When Miller's not going well, Edwards is. And like I say, that result Saturday just threw me right off of SMU here. It's got to be, and I'd be interested to know what your number is on this game, but it's got to be that the odds maker has it built in already. But I would think that early this morning, money would have moved toward the Miami side. It hasn't. That must mean that money feels like it's already been incorporated into the line, but I just don't. I think the value of this kid is unheralded. Having bet a lot of SMU totals this year and having watched a lot of SMU basketball with Andy Enfield. One thing they don't do is play defense. One thing Miami does is play defense. One other thing that SMU needs is all their offensive pieces on the floor to be good. Now, you could say maybe they worked through some things. One game without him on the floor, maybe that was problematic for them. How the heck do we adjust here without Edwards on the floor? And maybe they've got answers now. I don't know. I'm not buying into that school of thought either. So for me, at this price tag, man, it's got to be Miami for me or nothing at all. I even looked at total thinking, well, maybe SMU will still score. If I was going to play total here, I wouldn't want to exclude them, but I'm not as confident as I usually am playing SMU's overs. I think Miami's probably the right side here. We'll see, but to me, Edwards means that much.
My number is SMU minus 1.7. Now, I want to make something clear. Like, I will take a player out and I'll adjust the number based on what I think the player means to the number. But that does not mean like then I need to go and say, well, what does this person mean to the handicap? And I do agree with you there. So even though my number is still in line with what the market is, SMU minus 1.7, and that has factored in Edwards not being there, So for me, I'm just going to look at this from the Miami angle for a minute. Trey Donaldson has just been so good that I almost have, this is like, I've had to get off of my, oh, well, Miami is this fraud team because they haven't really played anyone and they keep catching everyone in a good spot. There's an element of truth to that. Listen, like that's undisputable. Go look at schedule ranks of ACC teams. They have played a much easier schedule than the next ACC team. They have, it's a 18 team league. I mean, they let anyone in now, Rob. So I've lost count. I think we have 18 teams in ACC for basketball, because of course we have Notre Dame in there for basketball, and they're right down there at the bottom, 17th or 18th in strength of schedule in conference. So that's undisputable. But what you can't dispute is the fact that they show up pretty much every game, even that one loss. So February, they're 6-1, and the one loss was in Charlottesville. And I would say that it was probably one of Miami's better performances because they hung around and covered. They were right there with a very, very good Virginia team. Go on the road to Florida State, no problem, win by 10. Destroy BC over the weekend. Find a way to win at NC State. That was a game where they were dead to rights and came back and won. They still get credit. They still beat North Carolina, even though it wasn't a great spot for UNC. So again, it's like I've wanted to go against them because I feel like the way I think they should be vulnerable on the road here. But I'm kind of with you. I did not find any really good reason to want to back SMU. So that this was kind of one that I passed on. And then, of course, Rob, when SMU wins, I'll be pissed at myself because I'll be like, there it was. There it was,
It's interesting because Jai Luke is the head coach of Miami. In almost every interview I've seen with him this year, multiple interviews or reading quotes from him, he brings in their team identity under his leadership is physical play. We play physical. You'll hear Lucas say that constantly. SMU doesn't play physical. SMU's so finesse. And when you get into analytics like Miami's offensive rebounding versus SMU's defensive rebounding, it's not close. Miami's going to be the team on the boards tonight, maybe the second chances, et cetera, et cetera. Miami somehow, some way gets to the free throw line more than anybody in the ACC and ACC games. So that's another just fundamental matchup aspect of this game that doesn't suit SMU. And if they had Edwards, I would say to you, Adam, to counter that SMU speed and up and down the floor nature is probably going to hurt Miami a little bit. They score a lot of points, but they don't necessarily like to go that way. So interesting game. I'm only off of it because of Edwards not being there. SMU's got some meaningful parts, and he's one of them.
All right, Rob, it is, I'm going to let you go if you want to. If you know your parlay leg, I'll let you go. If not, I'm going to go to the chat. So I'm giving you the right of refusal here, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, I'm going to use it, and we'll go to the chat right now.
All right. So this is good because we can kill a couple birds with one stone. Best day ever says, Jacksonville Bellarmine, any insight? I actually have quite a bit of insight here just in general to the Atlantic Sun tournament. I was just down in Florida this weekend. I got to catch 2 A-Sun games and also got to talk to some folks about the new tournament format. So I think it's we will talk about Jacksonville Bellarmine, but I also want to give some general thoughts out on the Atlantic Sun tournament because I know you degenerates are going to bet these games all afternoon because they're the only ones on this afternoon. So what I'm going to do here, Rob, start to look at the A-Sun tournament bracket. We are, rather than just focus on Jacksonville Bellarmine, we're going to have this next sort of 10 minutes is just going to be A-Sun tournament discussion. So we might actually give you more than one game here. The tournament is now located in Jacksonville. Okay. They're using 3 venues. So Jacksonville, Swisher Gym will host one of the sites, but Jacksonville can't play there. UNF Arena, where I was on Thursday, great little spot. I got my North Florida hoodie on right now. Is another host site, but North Florida can't play there. So Jacksonville will play their games at North Florida. North Florida will play their games at Jacksonville, and I think they may use Veterans Memorial downtown for like the final. That's the big arena in Jacksonville. That's like I don't think anyone plays there. It's just what like Jacksonville uses for like big concerts and stuff like that. So I think there's 3 venues for this tournament. So Jacksonville Bellarmine will be at UNF Arena at noon. I believe this is the noon game right here. I had a nice winner with Jacksonville on Saturday. It was more of a fade of North Florida. And Rob, you want to talk about just a no sweat winner. They were up 49 to like 17 at one point in that game. And they were like a pick. So Jacksonville came in and just absolutely mauled UNF. And I guess what's notable from that as it pertains to this game is it was in the UNF arena. So Jacksonville just played on this floor. They played extremely well on this floor, and they blew out North Florida. Now, Bellarmine is better than North Florida. North Florida plays no defense, and they've just been bad this year. They're like 7-24. So this particular game for me was a little bit of a toss-up. So I'm going to let you jump in here to just answer the question for best day ever. Do you have anything on Jacksonville Bellarmine? And if not, is there anything in the A-Sun tournament that catches your eye?
Real quick here, and while you were talking, I was trying to bring up the conference tournament odds because somebody asked us the other day, can we talk about conference tournament futures? And I didn't quite get to the spot where I get the odds here, but I do have 2 thoughts on this. And Central Arkansas is the number 1 seed in the tournament. For me, Adam, I would definitely take a shot with Lipscomb in this tournament, the 4 seed. Now, in order to get there, they're going to have to go through Central Arkansas. They're in that half of the bracket. And in the bottom half of the bracket, I don't know what the odds are on Austin Peay, but Austin Peay is probably, I know Central Arkansas is the 1 seed. From what I've seen, Austin Peay is probably the best team in this. So those are 2 that I would look at to win the tournament, the 2 and the 4. You're going to get a better number on Lipscomb, obviously. Again, I don't have them in front of me. So chat, if you can help me out here and just let me know what these conference tournament odds are. I don't think the 1 is going to win here. I think Queens is going to be a fan favorite type choice to win this. I don't think Queens is going to win this. Lipscomb's got a lot of program history, and they have a team that's capable of this. And again, I think the best all-around team here is going to be Austin Peay. But I want to this is halfway funny, halfway serious, because we took a lot of S blank blank T asterisk for discussing Florida Gulf Coast the other day, right? And
I'm glad you're bringing them up because that's where I was going next. So go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the chat was not happy. First of all, they weren't happy to hear about Florida Gulf Coast for 5-6 minutes. Second of all, they weren't happy that we kind of thought Florida Gulf Coast was in a pretty good spot, but they play North Alabama here, and they probably are in a good spot in my mind in this particular game against North Alabama. Now, they've taken some money. I think if you got to the window early and got a 6.5, you're in good shape. These 8s are starting to pop up now. 7.5s are still available.
8? Wow.
But for every reason that we started to give the other day about why Florida Gulf Coast was a play against North Florida, and in fact, Adam, it's a game you were at, and it's a game where FGCU had a first half lead and looked kind of easy. And maybe they thought it was too easy, but I don't think that'll be the case today. I think it's good for them to enter the tournament kind of in that fashion. And North Alabama, to me, doesn't pose much of a threat. So, again, 8 is a tough number, but I don't know. I would still lean that way at 7.5, and there's plenty of 7.5s out there.
Yeah.
So FGCU.
There's plenty of 7.5s. There's like the 8 is like rogue at this point. It's 7.5 is pretty much where it is. I do think it moves to 8 at some point. Best day ever says Adam is cooking. I got to throw that up there. Love to see that. Thank you for that. Attach a donation to it. Appreciate you. All right. So here's the deal. Yeah, that I had to sit there not only once, I had to sit there and watch Florida Gulf Coast twice this weekend because when I went to Stetson on Saturday afternoon, that was Stetson's opponent. Rob, I have not seen it. That team was so uninterested in playing basketball last weekend that it was like, so here's what happened to FGCU. And this is a perfect example of what I was trying to illustrate with why I'm maybe gravitating more toward conference tournaments right now instead of the final game of the regular season for some of these teams. FGCU came out, played a great first half against UNF. They were up 9 at half. Things didn't go their way in the second half. They ended up getting outplayed. They lost. And then on Saturday, they could not have cared less about that game at Stetson. It just didn't really mean much. And you could just tell that they rolled in there and were like, we are ready to go home. They lost. They got dominated by a Stetson team that should not be dominating anyone. That is not a good basketball team. Okay. And they got straight up dominated from the opening tip. Like it was just not a good road trip for Florida Gulf Coast. I still think this team has some juice, especially against the bottom teams in this league. And now, like, for me, the fact that they get to reset, okay, that weekend went horrible. It's a clean slate. Now we're playing for our season. I think you're going to see a much better effort from an FGCU team today that, in my opinion, is much better than North Alabama. So, Rob, I am going 7 minus 120 for my parlay leg, Florida Gulf Coast. Okay. You can still, and if you have, you know what I'm actually going to do? I'm going to put 7 minus 125 because I know some people that only have limited options may have to lay minus 130 in the parlay. There was a point in time this morning where I thought about FGCU minus 6.5. And I kind of wanted to see how, I kind of just like, I already have 3 other plays locked in. I'm kind of kicking myself. I wish I just locked in that 6.5. I'd love to have that for clients right now. But yeah, I think they're going to blast North Alabama. If this gets hit back in the other direction and this gets back down to a playable 7, I probably will put that out there for clients. But that's going to be my parlay leg because that Central Connecticut State game, even though it's a client play for me, that's Garth's leg of the parlay. So we're putting Garth in the parlay today. So I am on Florida Gulf Coast. We'll get some afternoon action. Best day ever wanted to talk ASUN tournament. And that is, in my opinion, the strong. I have opinions on the others, but that's probably the strongest of the 4 ASUN games for me. I think you're going to see Florida Gulf Coast play much better today. And I'm glad we're aligned there, Rob. Glad you saw it that way because I wasn't sure if I was going to bring it up, but it's been brought up and we're going to be on FGCU. So, and best day ever, just to answer your specific question, I guess if you forced me to, I would go Bellarmine, but I really did not have a strong opinion in that particular game. Anyway, so just to circle back and answer the question, if you forced me to in the early game, I'd pick Bellarmine, but I do not have nearly as strong of a take as I do on Florida Gulf Coast, which is game number 2. All right, Rob Bino, they're asking for you in the chat. What is the third leg of the parlay going to be?
All right, again, it always comes down to choice here, Adam, and I'll tell you this. Under consideration here, we're UAB minus 1.5 against Charlotte on the road. Andy Kennedy's team is so much better on the road than they have been at home. It's ridiculous.
I would talk if that's a game. Keep going, but I have an opinion in that one. But continue.
And watching them play North Texas on Sunday set basketball back about 50 years offensively. It was brutal. But the reason why I have an eye on UAB tonight is they are getting healthier. And the final piece of the puzzle may be back tonight if Ahmad Robinson plays. Might not. I don't think it'll matter. It's a seeding type game. It means a lot to both. They're tied inside the American standings. Games in Charlotte. But that UAB was under consideration. But I'm going to go to my go-to route here and play a team total. I just don't understand why Florida State's team total tonight against Pitt is 72.5 minus 125. Makes 0 sense. Luke Laux's team, and I guess I won't say 0 cents because Pitt plays like a snail. Jeff Capel tries to I mean, if he could shrink the game into, let's just play 15 minutes, guys, he would do it because Pitt just is, they just don't have the personnel to go 40 with a lot of these ACC teams. And they certainly don't have the personnel to go with a team that goes at the pace of Florida State. Florida State's played very, very well down the backstretch, down the home stretch here for in the ACC for Lauk's head coach. They got off to kind of a sluggish start. Team that we recognized early on is one that, to quote us in January, just want to chuck threes. They do chuck a lot of threes, but they've done a lot better since then as well. Pittsburgh does nothing good at this point in time, Adam. They may score on Florida State because Florida State doesn't play a heck of a lot of defense, but the number absolutely shocked me here, 72.5 team total. I think I'm playing the number way more than I'm even playing the team, and I like Florida State as a scoring type team. So for me tonight in a game against Pitt, in a game where, let me just really quick here, I had a note. I had something in my notes about the standings here where Florida State is concerned. Yeah, they're in this 8-8 bracket with SMU and Cal. And it's very possible, you just heard us talk about Miami of Florida and SMU. It's very possible that SMU loses tonight. And it's very possible that Cal loses as well and gives Florida State with a win, one hand up inside that bracket there, moving them up the standings. So for me tonight, it's going to be Florida State team total over 72.5, minus a quarter. As much as Pitt wants to slow the game down, I think Florida State will still get their opportunities. And 73 just is not a lot to ask for from this team in my estimation. So give me that as the parlay leg. Florida State team total up and over 72.5. And it does come with minus 125 attached to it.
Sorry, say your team total again one more time. I got the minus 125. What was the number?
72.5.
So FSU over 72.5. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I got it right. All right. Yeah, I mean, I had to remind myself. I forgot Pitt had a basketball program for a second, Rob. Like I over here, I forgot. I thought their season was canceled. I haven't seen them in a couple weeks, and that's how irrelevant they've become, which is insane to someone that grew up going to Syracuse basketball games and grew up in Big East territory. Like, to not have Pitt be an entity in college basketball is just sad. Those Syracuse Pitt games were some of the best ones I went to growing up. And the fact that they are now scrapping to get in to the 15-team ACC tournament field. Rob, they might not even make the conference tournament. So you want to talk about the side here real quick. They might need to they might need to win this game just to get into the conference tournament. If they lose, like, they're in a battle, a dogfight with Notre Dame and Boston College to get that last spot. There's only one spot open for 3 teams right now. And that's they've got a leg up on BC because they've got the extra win, but they're sitting there at 4-12 and Notre Dame is at 4-12. You know what I'm going to do? I think people would rather hit one more game than hear me just like talk about the state of Pitt basketball. And I have no opinion outside of your opinion on this game. So I'm gonna hop into the chat, and see what we can. We'll get another game here. I'll just, while I'm looking, Slick Vic says, yeah, Pitt comes off that big win, and now like they might be I don't know. I think Pitt's going to be very focused on trying to win this game. They really want to. I'm sure they want to go to the ACC tournament, but I have no. I have nothing to say. All right. Here's what we're gonna. We got to talk. I prefer to stay in the conference tournaments, so maybe we'll get more than one. I'm just gonna go real quick. I usually don't do rapid fire on the show, but I'll give you a chance to pull up one more game. Jay Buff is going to the Lemoyne game tonight, and he will be very, very upset if I do not touch on Stonehill Lemoyne. So here's the deal with that game. Stonehill's best player did not play over the weekend. Okay. And yet they still beat Lemoyne without him. But that was that was last weekend. Stonehill's best player did not play over the weekend, and they lost to Mercyhurst. Okay. So what I meant to say was Stonehill beat Lemoyne twice in the regular season, And now they might be without one of their best players. No, he's probably their best players. Coffee, Koffi, did not play over the weekend. So to me, like when I saw that open 7, okay, my number was quite a bit off there, Jay Buff. I was closer to like 3. So I would look towards Stonehill, especially because sometimes, Rob, in these smaller leagues, you look at the you look at how the meeting played out twice during the regular season, and it's like if one team's just better than the other team or has the like, I don't know that I trust Lemoyne to make all sorts of adjustments to just be like so much better in the third game. You know, they struggled with Stonehill twice. Now you mean to tell me they're going to lay 7? But if Coffee is out for Stonehill, that makes a difference to me. So, Jay Buff, I like this Lemoyne team this year. They can defend. They are maybe a team that I could see making an adjustment just because their defense has been very solid in the context of this league. But I would really want to know the status of Stonehill's best player. If he's in, I'd be more inclined to take the points with Stonehill because I think it's a big number. If he's out, then maybe this is a spot where Lemoyne like gets double revenge because they lost the first 2 meetings. Rob, you don't have to talk Stonehill Lemoyne. I'm going to let you finish this show with a game that you want to talk about. You can pick it from the chat. You can pick it from your list. Just give us one other thought before we close it out.
Yeah, I'll go to the Ohio Valley tonight, Adam, in a game that I think is as interesting as any, Little Rock and Lindenwood. They played twice this year. They split the season series. Both games were really close. Both games were higher scoring than what the total suggests it'll be tonight. I think the lowest scoring game they played was 153. They played as recently as February 10th. So there's a couple of games tonight where you find that the teams have had 2 matchups, but there was one instance, and I'm forgetting off the top of my head, where they haven't played since January 5th. So those games are probably meaningless. I think it comes out of the Sun Belt. It's one of those 2 matchups. But here with Lindenwood and Little Rock, like I say, not necessarily from a play perspective, but just from a college basketball fan perspective, I think this is as good as it gets. I do think it's going to get over the number, Adam. 148.5 to me does seem a little bit light. So for those looking for me to commit one way or the other on this game, I'll commit to you toward the over with a slight lean if you're sitting there with a, something to munch on the couch and you want to get your ESPN Plus account out and watch this game. Certainly you can do that, but it should be a really good game. Like I say, I thought that the number here, 148.5, came out a little bit short considering the way these 2 play. I often talk about Little Rock not being able to consistently shoot straight, but they've been better from the offensive perspective. And Lindenwood's a team that will, as the first 2 games indicate, they'll allow you to score. I think Little Rock scored like 79 and 82 in the 2 games that they've played against this team. So interesting game. That's why I brought it up. Conference tournament. That's why I brought it up. Lean toward the total over 148.5.
I'll throw so Aaron. I promised Aaron Pauling, who's watches the show all the time, that as the conference tournaments came about, that if I had like picks for like just the conference tournament pick, I would talk about it when I could on the show. Since I didn't really have one in the horizon, so here's the thing for the Sun Belt, I prefer to wait till the later rounds because like I'm just not going to take any of these early round teams in this gauntlet format, and I'd rather Sun Belt is one where I don't really want to I'd rather just play later if I can find one. This is one where I don't really care for like the top teams in this league. I actually think the winner of this game is going to have a chance to win this league. So one of these teams, right, is going to feed into Tennessee Martin. I think the winner of this game has a real chance to make a run in this tournament. So I almost think you're getting far better odds on Little Rock. I think just because of that, I would prefer Little Rock if I had to pick one. But you could play Lindenwood and Little Rock, maybe stagger them, because whoever wins this game, I think will have a chance to win their next game. And then, hey, you get down to the semifinals, who knows? Anything could happen. So I'll throw out a Little Rock future. You could play both, but I'm just taking the longer odds there. I think Little Rock is big odds. It's got to be I don't know, 40 to 1. I don't have it in front of me, but they're live in my opinion, because they just mess with teams. They play that zone, and if they can score a little bit, like you said, sometimes they can't shoot it straight, but if they can generate a little offense, I think they're gonna have a chance. So that would be my just like shot in the dark future. Rob, I tweeted Cleveland State at 500-1 the other day, which will probably be a coaster after tonight. But I said, hey, if they get those two guys back, we'll see. So anyway,
real quick before the hockey people get mad at us, I found the odds, guys. Austin Peay is the favorite to win that tourney, even though they're the 2 seed, plus 205. But Lipscomb at plus 475. Like Adam was just saying about the potential for Little Rock. I think Lipscomb, they don't have to win as many games either, because they advance almost to the semifinals almost. So I would try Lipscomb at plus 475 in the ASUN tournament.
Real quick parlay of the day. Central Connecticut State minus 4.5. It's a 4% client play for me, but Garth found that one as well. We're putting Garth in the parlay. My leg of the parlay, Florida Gulf Coast minus 7. You can attach the minus 125 juice. That's an early game in the Atlantic Sun tournament. And then Rob Vino closing us out, Florida State over 72.5 on the team total. That's your 3-teamer today. That's your show. We'll be back 10 a.m. tomorrow. Have a great day, everyone. Let's cash some tickets.